Good morning, everybody. So today I am going to be taking you through, for my first video in 7 months I'm going to be taking you through some of the Yu-Gi-Oh decks that I've been building in the last 6-7 months. I've gotten back into the game, the card game, probably in the last year. I've been playing with my friends and attempting to build a deck which is tournament worthy, or at least competitive in some kind of casual play kind of way. So I'm going to take you through here. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk through my most competitive build so far. Also, don't mind the poor quality of audio that you may get in today's video. Apologies, but my camera is currently not turning itself on, so I'm going to try and find a way to fix that. But in the meantime, you're going to have a video filmed on my iPhone. Hope you don't mind. Anyway, without further ado, as YouTubers say, let's get into it. Cool. So right here in front of me, I have the YGO box that I store my Star Drive Virtual World inside. Virtual World is an archetype of Yu-Gi-Oh! And has been played since 2020, roughly. And the Star Drive part is just a name I've added because I've combined two different archetypes within this deck, main archetypes. One of them, of course, being Virtual World, and the other one being Stardust or Stardust Dragon. So we'll find out today how that works. I'm just going to take you through the box a little bit. So this is a magnetic seal box by YGO. This is not a sponsored video, but I do really like their boxes, and you can completely detach this lid from the box itself to try and find more space in the box. So yeah, just really nice product for any Yu-Gi-Oh deck builders out there. Anyway, let's get into the cards and see what we've got. So here is the deck. We've got the Virtual World main deck of about 43 cards, and the side deck of 15 cards. I also do run a bunch of extra stuff, including a Muddy Mud Dragon, a fusion package, and a few other interesting things which I will go through at the end of the video. But for now, we're just going to pick these up. We'll go through the main deck first, and then we'll go through the extra deck. Okay, cool. So we're going through the main deck first. Now the main deck runs a combination of level 3s. So we've got 2 Psychic Wielder. That really helps you get out psychic monsters. And then we've got the 3 copies. No, sorry, we only run 2 copies of GGGG. Now GGGG has a nice effect. That means that you can send a card from the graveyard and add one to your hand so long as they're Virtual World in order to special summon them onto the field. That's really good for being able to help the Virtual World archetype spam the field with cards. And then we also run 2 of the Maihime Lulu. Now Maihime Lulu has a nice effect that if you special summon a level 3 monster, I think it's normal or special summon a level 3 monster, you can special summon her onto the field. And I believe she also has a graveyard effect allowing her to banish as well. So we have 2 Maihime Nyan Nyan as well. Now Maihime Nyan Nyan has a similar effect to Maihime Lulu. And sorry, not Maihime Nyan Nyan, just Hime Nyan Nyan. So there's those. And then we also run 2 hand traps in the form of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Really helps with negates to your opponents. So Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring allows us to negate if they add a card from their deck to their hand, they special summon from the deck, or they send a card from the deck to the graveyard. And so we can send this deck to the graveyard in order to banish that. Obviously, if you have a Shen Shen on the field, this card gets banished, but the chance of you wanting to reuse it is pretty slim anyway. Right, let's move on to level 6s. This deck also runs a combination of level 6s. So we have 1, 2, 3 copies of Virtual World Roshi Lao Lao. Now Roshi Lao Lao is quite a good card because it allows you to also send a card from the deck to the graveyard and one from your deck to your hand in order to special summon him. Obviously, if you have a level 6 and a level 3 on the field, you can synchro out for level 9. Allowing you to synchro out some pretty interesting stuff, including Shen Shen from the extra deck. But we'll go through that in a minute. We've got next Virtual World Kirin Lili. Now, Kieran Lely's effect is really interesting, allowing you to target a virtual world card you control, send a virtual card of a different type, monster, spell, or trap from the deck to the graveyard, and if you do, to special summon this card onto the field. Quite similar to the other's effect, but virtual world Kieran Lely is a little bit more recyclable with some of the spells and traps that you play in the deck. There are also some odd ones out, I would probably call them, from the main monster pack, which are level 3s and level 6s. Obviously, we play a level 6 Otohime Tutu, which is the rabbit card. I only play one of them because its effect, if I can zoom in quickly on it, if I control no monsters or all monsters I control are psychic and or worm monsters, I can normal summon this card without tributing. Otherwise, you'd have to tribute it for a level 6, tribute 2 monsters. And if this card's in my graveyard, I can discard a psychic or worm monster and special summon it as a tuner, but banish it when it leaves the field. So it is a pretty good recyclable card as well. So we play Otohime, and we also play 2 Cyframe Gear Gammas. I'm currently waiting on my Cyframe Gear drivers, but we do play them in the deck because when their effect does pop off, you can summon them and driver and also stop your opponent from special summoning, I believe. And finally, for the monsters that I play in this virtual world archetype, I play 2 Mariamne, the True Draco Phoenix. Now, Mariamne is both a high-level boss monster, so it would take a few cards to summon, but also it's a pretty neat hand trap as well. If this card's in my hand, I can destroy 2 monsters in my hand or face upon the field, including a wind monster, so you can even destroy your opponent's monsters. And if I do, I can special summon this card, and if I do that, both my monsters destroyed are wind. I can also banish 4 cards from the top of my opponent's deck. And obviously, if this card is destroyed by hand effect, you can by card effect there, you can see you can add 1 non-wind worm monster from your deck to your hand. That's a bit of a mouthful, but yeah, that's a pretty interesting card to play. And I picked it to play in this deck, in this archetype. Obviously, you could change that out for a bunch of other stuff as well. I just chose to play Mariamne because I like the way that there's a few ways you can play into her as well, without having to tribute off many monsters from your side of the field. There are quite a lot of the meta decks nowadays which do play wind monsters, so it's a good kind of anti-meta card. Anyway, let's move on to spells and traps and see what we've got. Okay, so looking at the spells in this archetype first, we have 3 Virtual World Gate Qinglong. Right, Virtual World Gate Qinglong is a card this deck is said to rely quite heavily upon. I'm running an archetype which I believe doesn't rely as heavily on the gates or Gate Qinglong as a certain card, but it's a very good card still. The gates allow you to banish or to summon cards, as this deck, this archetype, favors banishing. So you can banish a virtual world card to graveyard and then target 1 face-up monster on the field and negate its effect. So you can negate your opponent's cards even if this card has left the field. So say they've destroyed it and the effect still pops off. And it is targeting, that's the only thing. So if you're playing a Sacred Beasts deck, for example, the gates are not the best cards to use against that. That kind of archetype that gets stronger as the game goes on. But this deck does have the ability to swarm the field with some extra deck monsters and make for a fun play. So Virtual World Gate Qinglong we have right there. I currently only play 1 Dark Ruler No More. I had played more, but on the current format I only play 1. That is just because of consistency, really. But as you can see, Dark Ruler No More is a little bit of a cheaper version of Forbidden Droplet, which is coming out again as a re-release later this month. But negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of the turn. Also, for the rest of this turn, after the card resolves, your opponent takes no damage. So essentially, you can clear their field if you have the monsters on the field to do that, which Virtual World quite usually does, swarming the field and everything. But at that cost, you can't do any damage to them, which is why Forbidden Droplet is slightly better, but we will talk about that in another video. So 1 copy of Dark Ruler No More. We also play 2 copies of Virtual World City Kowloon. Now, Kowloon's a great card because if you've set it the turn before, obviously, because it's not a quick effect card, and so it can't respond to cards or monster effects that your opponent's activated, so you have to have set it onto the field the turn before. However, if you have done that and you activate it, you can place another Virtual World Gate card from your deck face up in your spell and trap zone and then activate it. And then it has different quite cool effects depending on the number of cards that you have in that spell and trap zone of Virtual World Gate cards. So my particular favorite one is if you do have 4, you can special summon up to 4 Virtual World monsters with different names from your extra deck. Now that's very good because it also allows you to swarm the field with not just regular monsters, but it allows you to swarm the field with a whole bunch of Synchro or Xyz monsters, depending on what materials you had, because obviously it doesn't specify that you don't have to use materials. So you still do have to use materials for this Virtual World City Kowloon, but it is a very cool card. And I like the fact that they've done this kind of futuristic version of the walled city Kowloon from Hong Kong on the front of the card. Very, very cool looking card. Anyway, let's move on. So we also play 1, 2 copies of Virtual World Gate Chuche. Now Chuche is an interesting card because if you target a face-up card in the field, you can shuffle 2 of your banished Virtual World cards with different names from each other into the deck and then destroy that card. So not only are you destroying an opponent's card, it is a targeting one, once again, but not only are you destroying that opponent's card, unless they can negate it, but you're also returning 2 of your banished zone monsters back into your deck. So it's kind of a good recycle card for this Virtual World archetype. Next up, we have 1, 2, and we play 3 Virtual World Gate Jianwu. Now, people usually play 1 or 2 Virtual World Gate Jianwu. I play 3 because it helps me in my battle phase. Now, if you activate this card in the battle phase, if you control another Virtual World Gate card, which by the time you pick up this card from your deck, you usually do, it's pretty quick. So you can target face-up monster on your field and change its battle position. Meaning, for example, if you have a monster on your opponent's side of the field that has a lower defense than it has attack, you can switch it to defense, and vice versa. Say you're going against super heavy samurais and you need them to be in attack so you can attack through them, you can do that. And you could also play into, for example, Utopia to reduce their attack to 0 and attack through them with Jianwu as well. So that is why I play 3 copies of Jianwu and not just 2. So let's move on now. Other good cards I play, there's the gold version, but I also have 2 more. Infinite Impermanence, very sought after card in nowadays. I'm sure anybody watching this video, or almost anybody who's clicked on this video, will know what Infinite Impermanence does. Also, apologies for this quality. My camera is only an iPhone camera. Anyway, we'll put that back. Then we'll go into what I play 1 of. So I play 1 of Xyz Burst. That's really good for level 6 or higher Xyz monsters that have been summoned. I play a Swords of Revealing Light. Really good, just general card to play in this deck. I play 1 Emergency Teleport. I'd love to play 2, but we're just waiting on the other one to arrive. I play 1 Xyz Effect. Really good for my Xyz monsters as well. I play 1 IDP or Ice Dragon's Prison. Really good for lots of different archetypes. But it's a great card to play in this one as well. And I play 1 of Nibiru, the Primal Being. Obviously, I'd love to play 2 more of him, but with his current price, I'm just being a little bit careful with how many Nibirus I actually purchase. So I've got 2 at the minute, and I play 1 in another deck as well. So they're the cards that I play 1 of in this deck. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed watching the main deck review. Lots of the consistency can be improved, but it's largely still budget compared to a lot of today's meta decks. It costs somewhere between £100 and £150 or dollars, depending on where you live. And so that kind of main deck is a little bit expensive, but not as expensive as, say, trying to build a Sword Soul or a Drytron in today's meta. Anyway, I'll carry on now. We'll look through the extra deck. starting with the synchro monsters and going through into the Xyz monsters and talking about how they work and how they help this archetype. So let's go. Okay, awesome. So I'll get a better shot over the top here, so you can see the shininess, the rarity on some of these cards is very, very cool. Good artworks. So as you can see, I played 2 Shen Shen. Shen Shen's great because it banishes your opponent's card as soon as they go into the graveyard. So say you destroy their card by a battle or card effect, or even they send their cards to the graveyard for tribute. For any reason, those cards in the graveyard then go into the banished zone. And I played 2 of that card because Shen Shen is really, really good and recyclable. So say you got 2 of them onto the field, not that you'd need them, you would be able to do quite a lot of interesting things to your opponent. So we have Virtual World Beast Dredre. Now Dredre is a good kind of going second card or kind of third turn card. If you get Dredre out, it's unaffected by card effects or it's unable to be destroyed by battle. You do still take damage if your opponent attacks through it, but it can't be destroyed by battle if you have 2 or more Virtual World cards in your graveyard. Now, as this deck kind of likes putting cards in the graveyard or banishing cards, Virtual World Beast Dredre is a really good card to have. Also, I like the kind of crazy green fire that's coming out of the back there. Very, very cool card in general. Next, we have Stellar Windwall Freya. Now, Stellar Windwall Freya is a great card. It keeps gaining attack. So it starts at 2500 and it keeps gaining 300 attack each time you or your opponent activates a card effect, be it monster or spell or trap, until it gets to 4000. And then you can take this card off the field and all of your opponent's cards, including monsters and spells and traps, removing them and I believe returning them to hand. So that's a really, really good card to play in quite a lot of decks, but works very well in this deck. Then we've got Vermilion Dragon Mech. Vermilion Dragon Mech is a great card. So Machine Synchro, slightly different. Once per turn, you can banish a tuner from your hand, graveyard, or face up on the field, then target a card on the field and destroy it. So it is targeting, but you can target a card in your opponent's field and destroy it. And if this Synchro card is destroyed by card effect and sent to the graveyard, something that's quite prevalent in this mecha, then you can target one of your banished tuners and add it to your hand, which is really, really good to be able to then Synchro out into, say, another Shen Shen or any of these in the back row here. So that's a good card. Let's look next at Blackwing Nothing the Starlight. Blackwing's a card I've only actually got to play in this deck once, but I do run it in the main 15 card extra deck. So obviously 1 tuner and 1 non-tuner, so pretty easy to get out. 2400 beat stick. If this card's special summoned, you can inflict 800 damage straight to your opponent. Not too bad. Then add a face-up monster your opponent controls. Loses a attack and defense up to 800. So you can only use the effect of this card once per turn, but during your main phase you can special summon a Blackwing monster in addition. So if you were playing a Blackwing package in this deck, that would be a good card to use as well, but doesn't get used as often, so you could also change it out for something else I have in this extra deck over here, or anything else you'd quite like to play. So when my Cyframe Driver arrives, I've got Cyframe Gear Gamma and Cyframe Driver, which you can synchro out for Cyframe Lord Omega. Really, really good card. 2800 beat stick, just like Shen Shen is. So if you had Omega Shen Shen on the field, or even Dredre, you could get a full field even. Cyframe Lord, you could get Shen Shen, you could get Beast, and you could get Vermilion Dragon Mech. That's a pretty good field to have. So there's that card there. And then also, quite interestingly, a lot of people are running this now, but I like this kind of Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon, 3k beat stick. You can 1 tuner and 1 non-tuner synchro monster, so you have to have another synchro monster on the field and also to bring this out, so it's a little bit more difficult. But once per turn, when another monster's effect is activated, quick effect, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that monster, so non-targeting. And if you do that, this card gains attack equal to the destroyed monster's original attack until the end of this turn. So it's pretty damn good. And this card's attack is equal to the current attack of your opponent's monster if it's battling during damage calculation only. So pretty damn good cards to have summoned. And the other card I play from the Stardust archetype, as we mentioned before, is Stardust Charge Warrior. Pretty good for allowing you to draw another card. I like the rarity of this card, but that doesn't mean it's any more or less special than the rest of these synchro monsters. Anyway, that is the synchros that I play in this virtual world archetype. Let's move on now to the Xyz monsters right here and check out what we play. Alrighty, and last but not least, we have the extra deck Xyz monsters. Now, Xyz summoning is something you obviously have to do using materials that you already have on the field. So they are generally a little bit harder cards to get out than synchro monsters. For anybody watching this video who doesn't play Yu-Gi-Oh! In today's format or at all. So we'll go through these cards here then. So if you have two Shenshens on the field, you can Xyz for 9. So you have 2 level 9s on the field. You can Xyz for a level 9 Xyz monster. So the 2 level 9 Xyzes that we play are Infinitrack Earth Slicer and number 9 Dyson Sphere. Now, they're both interesting in their own right. Infinitrack Earth Slicer having 3100 attack is pretty interesting. There's not many cards out there with 3100 exact attack. It's pretty strange. I just like the artwork and the archetype Infinitracks anyway. But so 2 level 9 monsters. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, pretty easy to do, 3/1 beat stick. You can attach that monster to the card as material and use each of these following effects once per turn. So that's both of these effects here. You can detach any number of materials from this card, then target that many cards on the field and destroy them. So it is targeting, but if your opponent can't negate that, you can destroy quite a lot of cards on the field. Say you had a 4 or 5 material Infinitrack Earth Slicer using your opponent's monsters as well. So you could clear their field quite quickly with this card. And if this card's in my graveyard, you can tribute a Machine Link monster and special summon this card in defense position. So I know we don't play any Machine Link monsters in the main version, but in the side deck over there, we do have some Machine Link monsters that we can use. So that's Infinitrack Earth Slicer, and we also run this nice card here, number 9 Dyson Sphere. Now, not a lot of people run Dyson Sphere in this archetype, but I thought it'd be quite interesting to go into it as well. So once again, 2 level 9 monsters. During my main phase 1, so that's my first main phase before my battle phase, if your opponent controls a monster with higher attack than this card, you can detach material from this card, and this card can attack directly this turn. So that takes 2800 off your opponent's life points. Pretty nifty, and pretty easy to get into if you have 2 Shenshens on the field as well, that you can do that. And then it has a quick effect. You can negate the attack of one of your opponent's monsters. And then if this card is targeted for an attack while it has no material, you can target 2 monsters in your graveyard and attach them as material. So it's a pretty good recycle card as well. So number 9, Dyson Sphere. I, of course, play this one, the biggest boy of the 2021-2020 meta, Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder. He needs no introduction. Everybody more or less knows what he does. And he's 3000 attack and 3000 defense. So he's a pretty damn good monster, obviously quite high, but you can summon him by using another Xyz monster that's attacked this turn. So you can Xyz summon using Dyson Sphere, Infinitrack Earth Slicer, or any of these cards, which I also play. So that is AA Zeus. I play 1 Virtual World Phoenix Fan. Now that's 2 level 6 monsters, as he's a rank 6. And he's a pretty cool Phoenix looking card. He's not in any crazy rarity, but he is quite nice. Once per turn, you can detach 2 material from this card, then target a face-up card your opponent controls and 1 card in either graveyard and banish them. If the Xyz summoned card is destroyed by battle with an opponent's attacking monster, or by opponent's card effect while in its owner's monster zone, which is pretty common, you can special summon 2 virtual monsters of the same type and attribute as each other from your deck. So you can bring out 2 Lulus or 2 Lao Laos, for example. So that's a good card to use, gets pretty common use. Break Sword is a good out kind of card to use. It's only a Xyz 3, so you only need 2 level 3s. So you can normal summon and then Xyz summon straight into it, so long as your opponent doesn't negate that summon. So We have once per turn, you can detach a material from this card, then target a card you control and one card your opponent controls. Destroy them. And if this exceeds summon card is destroyed, you can target 2 Phantom Knights monsters with the same level in your graveyard and special summon them. So obviously that's why it gets used in Phantom Knight decks. Now we side some, but they don't work massively well with Virtual World. But still interesting cards to use. So we have that. And last but not least, I've mentioned him before briefly, number 39, Utopia Beyond. Great card, reduces your monsters, reduces your opponent's monsters attack to 0 that they currently have on the field until the end of the turn. Once again, there are archetypes like Sacred Beasts that can get around this by bringing Hamel back to the field with the original attack, but you can, beat through it for 3,000 straight away. And also you can gain life points if you have another Utopia monster. I have one in that side deck over there, and you can special summon it back to the field, then gain 1,250 life points, or 1,250, my bad. But there we go. So we'll just make them look a little bit neater. I'm not OCD, I promise. Anybody who knows me will know that is true. Anyway, that is my Virtual World deck. I hope you've enjoyed watching today, and I will see you next time. Hi guys, I just wanted to say a really big thank you if you watched that whole video and were actually interested in the card game Yu-Gi-Oh! I realise it's quite a nerdy kind of niche thing to know about, but I played it growing up and absolutely loved playing the game with my friends in early high school and stuff like that. And to have actually found something like Yu-Gi-Oh! To get back into, to play with some old friends while, kind of waiting for the world to slowly heal itself from this pandemic has been honestly absolutely wonderful. And it's been, Yu-Gi-Oh! Hang out with friends and playing this kind of card game has been one of the really, saving graces for me in this past few months. So if you want, comment down below. If you like the video, give it a like. Comment down below what kind of things that you did, you picked back up, say art or card games or even skateboarding, whatever it is that you picked back up now that the world is opening up again and giving you the chance to kind of relearn something, if you like, that you hadn't done in a while. So yeah, just wanted to say a really big thank you and comment down below. I will see you next time with whatever kind of video, most likely a snowboarding video. So I'll see you in Andorra. Ciao.